So I'm going through my edit and I wonder, am I a terrible writer? Welcome back to Writer's Theory. I'm James Winterthorn, and today I'm going to give you an update on where I'm at with making changes to my manuscript based off of the suggestions I just received. First, if you recall from the last video on where I updated my progress, I was hoping that I would have made all the changes by now. And That just wasn't practical. Um, if I was, if I had 8 hours a day to dedicate to this, I could probably be done in a few days. But it is a process. It's about 10 minutes a page to make the adjustments. Um, and so I'm really looking at about 15 hours or so of work to complete this portion of the editing phase that I'm on right now. So it was a little ambitious to think that I might be done right now with these changes. That being said, I'm about halfway, maybe a little bit less, but about halfway. I'll share where I'm at. I've got some clips to share with the correction process. Like in the previous editing videos, unlike the writing, I'm not going to share all of the editing sessions just because I don't know that you need to see that to understand the process I'm going through. After I share the clips of the editing that I did do, I did want to talk about a feeling that we get as writers when we're reviewing uh, work that's been edited or critiqued or just commented on, and how to manage those feelings. Because we put so much of ourselves into anything that we produce, especially writing, that it's hard not to take it personally when it doesn't come back perfect, or where there are suggestions made for uh, delivery and story structure and character development. So I want to discuss a little bit about that since I kind of had some of those feelings going through this portion of the editing process. So we'll talk about how to manage our feelings and expectations when we get back uh, commented material. But first up, let's go over the clips I have to share, and I will of course narrate what's happening as we go through these. So I'm up to, this is the third chapter. This is what I've identified as the inciting incident. The story bounces around a little bit from a time frame standpoint. So this is really the event that starts all of the events of the story. And so really you can just see this is a lot of just cleaning up um, just some of the basic errors. Some more, there's some dialogue adjustments to get more consistent uh, character dialogue across. And then also to, when I'm describing things, especially things that aren't concrete and more ethereal, describing these things isn't always clear. So it does just some of the stuff I'm just cleaning up, making it so the imagery is clearer and more understandable. Yeah, I'm still just amazed at just how many errors got through. A lot of this is again just uh, choices in terms of understood delivery and character, but sometimes there are just mistakes. Like serveware is a real word, but Microsoft Word doesn't like it. Really strange stuff like that too, where you can't even trust the programs that you're working with to give you good information. it is kind of unfortunate where we rely on these programs to give us correct information, and sometimes it's just off a little bit. So it just goes to show that you get as many different views on your work as possible. And what I mean by that is, like in this case, Microsoft Word is going to tell me what it identifies as opportunities or errors. ChatGPT will give me what it identifies as opportunities and errors. Maybe you have Grammarly plugged in, and that will give you its opportunities. And then you read it yourself, and hopefully have another person read it. And hopefully, by the time all of these inputs and changes are made, you've got a relatively clean manuscript. But it'd be nice if there was just one step you had to take. But the truth is, editing takes multiple phases. So let's get on to the next segment and see what we've got there. I also wanted to, and based off the feedback, have it make sure that the relationship between Charles and Mercer is more of host guest, and that Charles is the one in charge. Charles is in charge of the house, and really what he says goes. So making that very clear. And making sure that here I'm just clarifying the story that Charles is telling about his past, and making sure that's very consistent with itself and with the time frame. If you watch the writing of this story, you know that one of my favorite things to do is to have characters tell their own stories. And this is one of the first instances of that in this story. Yeah, lots of just little adjustments and tweaks. Really just kind of this is the last bit of polishing as I go through this phase of the editing process. I'm super grateful to have had all of these things be identified for me, because I'm just not terribly thorough when I go through and do. And when I'm looking at my own work, I went through it and marked it up. So I'm not the most thorough. I still do my best. And since I'm the one that wrote this, this story and these lines are in my mind somewhere. And so as I'm reading, I'm also anticipating what I wrote. And so I very clearly missed things as a result of not being very thorough while reading it. And I'm just anticipating those things that I wrote, and overlook those errors because I don't expect them to be there. So this is where having another person come in and really go through it cleanly is very beneficial. So that's what I have to share in terms of the progress I've made. Like I say, I'm about halfway through. The other portion that I wanted to talk about here is just how I feel when I get my work back, and what advice I would give writers when they either receive criticism from another writer or a critic or just a reader in general, or when you get your manuscript back from an editor, and just how to manage those feelings. When I was in school, in college, I took several writing workshops in which we shared our fiction with the class or with smaller groups within the class. And it was always interesting to see how people delivered feedback and how that feedback was received. And granted, when you're in college, the conversation of there's two conversations. One, the biggest one is to remove the writer from the work. So you want to remove yourself personally as a person from the thing you've written. So it's not any judgment or criticism of the work isn't a judgment or criticism of the writer. And we do this on both sides. So that's the two things. One, as a writer, I have to understand that I need to remove my self-worth and my esteem from this rough draft that I created, and not take it personally when somebody says something not flattering about it. We do this because if we don't consciously make this decision to remove ourselves from our work, every little bit feels like an attack on our self-esteem as our worth as a writer, which is just ridiculous, right? A rough draft is just a rough draft, and it's going to be adjusted. It's going to be cleaned up, and then what we really want it to be should be the final product. And all of the pieces of dirt and dust that we're going to knock off before we polish this gem, well, that stuff will be removed. So we can't take it too personally, and we would probably all be even more emotional wrecks if we didn't remove ourselves from this process. The other half of this is when delivering criticism or suggestions to another writer's work. Again, we need to remove the writer from their work. So we want to talk about the work itself, the story itself, and not how a writer can, like, we don't want it to feel like an attack on the writer and say you should have done this, or your characters are underdeveloped. We want to say this character feels like it needs more development. We want to focus on the work and not the writer's involvement in the work. I mean, that is obvious. Obviously, the writer wrote it, but we want to talk about the story and not the writer who wrote it. That way, it feels we're less emotionally involved. We're not attacking each other. It doesn't feel that way, and we can stay on point for it's the character that needs some development, not the writer. So those two sides, we divorce the writer from the work, and then we focus on the work, both as a writer and as a reader of that work. This way, we can stay focused. We don't hate ourselves for not creating perfect drafts immediately, and eventually we create the story that we want to create. So, long way of saying, don't take it personally when we get feedback on our stories. It's not going to be perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect at this point. So we just keep working. We just keep editing, and we get to the next phase. We make it cleaner, and we get to the next phase, and we make it cleaner. And eventually we put it out to the world, and hopefully it has zero flaws. It's a lot of work to get there, though. So that's what I have to share. I hope to be ready with this, to be finished with this phase on the next video. Not going to make any promises, but I would like to accomplish that goal. If you want to see if I accomplish this goal and follow this journey of getting this novel to publication, or you just want other writing related content, well, please like and subscribe. I'm going to get back to editing, and I will see you in the next video.